But I never forgot how the adults who helped with that church choir group, gave of their time and their talents. Yeah. And I just felt like it's time to give back.
Hello everyone, today we're here on a very special guest, Mr. Cary Simms. He is the chair of the Fisher's Peak Friends of the Blue Ridge chapter and director of the Rotary International Club here in Hillsville, Virginia. Mr. Simms, how are you today?
Well, I'm doing well. I'm actually a past president of a local Hillsville club, and also this year I'm the district inbound coordinator for the youth exchange program, International Youth Exchange Program.
Yeah, and we actually had a student last year who was a part of that.
That's correct. He went to Carroll County High School. He was from Slovakia. Mm-hmm. He went back in June, but he was here for the whole school year and really enjoyed having him here.
Okay. So, are you currently a director of any kind for Rotary? Because on the Rotary website, you're listed as club director and executive.
Okay. So the club is governed by a set of directors.
Right.
So I'm sorry. That's right. I am a club director as well.
I see. So I wasn't sure the semantics of it all.
Well, I'm not the director.
Okay, right. Okay, I understand. So there's like a board and then there's the officers. Right. Okay, sure. Something that you've already mentioned is the exchange program. What's your role with it? You mentioned you're the district coordinator.
Well, when we had the exchange student from Slovakia, I was the youth exchange officer for our club. So that's a club position. Whenever there's an exchange student that a Rotary club accepts, they have to find host families. Right. And then usually the student will stay with multiple host families so they get a good, wide experience with the culture here. But the way the program's set up, and it's governed by the Department of State, United States.
Oh, really?
The youth exchange officer, is kind of like the consistent person that's dealing with the student throughout, his school year. And so this year, I became the district inbound coordinator. So basically, I'm kind of a coordinator that works with the youth exchange officers for whichever clubs are hosting this year. Right. And we have 4 students that came over this year, none in Hillsville.
Okay. Are there Rotary clubs in Withfield and Galax as well, or in surrounding localities?
We have a district that's going from the eastern side of Tennessee up to Winchester and down to, here to Hillsville. So we're kind of the southern border of this district.
I see.
I think there's 34 clubs, all in all.
I think it was probably around March, I went to the district conference at Virginia Tech, and I saw all the banners there from various different clubs. I didn't really realize how large this district was, and I got to see the district, is it president speak?
Well, they have a president, yeah.
Yeah, and she also came to a meeting.
I'm sorry, it's a governor.
District governor, that's right. She also came to a local meeting a couple months ago, probably around December, November, December, at Fiddler's, and she spoke and she talked about her literacy project.
Right.
So let's talk about the local chapter a little bit. What does Hillsville specifically focus on?
Well, we have a lot of different projects we support. The club's been in existence since the 1930s. It was started by the Galax Club. Right. And one of the things they've done is they helped establish the Carroll County Scholarship Program for high school students. Yes. But after it grew, has a separate committee that does that now, but a lot of our members are still involved with it. Yeah. So we support that financially. I would say besides the youth exchange program and that, we have other projects, like we've worked at the VFW to improve their kitchen facilities because the whole community uses that. Right. And we leveraged a matching grant from district to do that. So the funds that we're able to provide locally, for 4 years now, we've been able to get a match from the district, so it magnifies the impact a lot.
That's impressive.
The first grant that I recall we did was at the Joy Ranch Christian Home for Children, and they wanted to remodel a room they had and make it an educational resource center. So real proud of the work we did there. And I'm just trying to remember a couple of the other grants we did. I've got some notes here I'm just going to refer to so I don't misspeak about anything. Yeah. We also supported the Carol Christmas Fund last year.
Yeah, that was big.
That's a big impact to the community, and we have members that help every year anyway, but we kind of had extra help this year in addition to supplying some funding for that, and they were able to expand what they were able to send out. And this year, our grant and project is for Recovery United. Yes. And it's a program that's actually based here in Hillsville, and they meet once a week and they serve people that are homeless or dealing with addiction and any type of recovery And with some funding and, you know, other kind of support from our club, you know, they're really strengthening that program.
Yeah. So part of Rotary is Interact, which is the high school, I don't want to say version, but the high school component of Rotary. And I'm a member of Interact myself, and so are my classmates. And we help out with various different activities that Rotary puts on. They invite us to come, and we can help out in some manner. One of those activities is the Recovery United. And last year I came to one of the sessions, and we watched children while their parents were counseling or going through the support sessions with the staff members. Mm-hmm. So how did that come about?
So how did the Recovery United program come about?
How long has it been part of the community?
I would say, I think it's about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that the staff that are in place now, you know, were involved when it started, but they've gone through training and additional certifications, so it's very well done now. And I think there's like an average of 25 to 30 that come every week.
Really?
Once a month they have a speaker, and they do a meal every week. Mm-hmm. But they usually have more attendance when they have that speaker. And you're right, you know, that a lot of them bring, you know, children, and so there's always need for, you know, how do we watch the children and have a little program for them. One time we had a pickleball net set up, and we did pickleball with them just to show them how to play the game.
Oh yeah, we carved pumpkins.
Yeah. And then Friends of the Blue Ridge actually had produced some child-size dulcimers. And they were in use at the music center, so that they could have programs out there. So we got Aubrey Arrington to come over. He's the one who's involved with that, and he showed them how the instrument works and played a little song.
Well, that's cool. I didn't realize that. Funding is a big part of this. There's local fundraising done through Rotary, and you mentioned that Friends of the Blue Ridge have contributed and the district have contributed. Is there external, like federal or state funds that are also used?
No, Rotary's, you know, a big international organization,
Right.
thousands and thousands of clubs, and it's completely, you know, it's not part of the government at all. Mm-hmm. It's just done by the people who are the members. But there's a big hierarchy. You have districts and you have area governors,
Right.
and it gets bigger and bigger until you have the international president.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the people that are involved with Rotary, especially historically, were kind of like pillars of the community type people.
Right. Yeah.
And it's become more and more people who just want to, you know, do good and be participating in the service projects. But there's still there's a lot of money, basically, I would say.
Yeah.
But we have members who, you know, aren't that well off, and they're fine with just paying their dues, and it's really not that expensive. It's like $50 a quarter over and above what they pay for the meals, because we have in this club we have a meal when we meet.
Right. Yeah.
And people can donate extra money to a foundation. You know, it's all 501c3 and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know if you know this, but Rotary identified eradicating polio back in the 1980s.
Yes. Yeah.
And through the organization and support that Rotary gave, you know, it's been a huge win. Still not 100% done. There's still a couple of countries that have some polio positive tests, but a lot of success with that, and Bill Gates and other, you know, well-known foundations have got involved, and still, you know, the hardest thing to do is to finish it off.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
the 1%.
Right.
Yeah. Another project that you were involved in was the wheelchairs that were being sent to South America. That was actually part of the Interact Club at the high school too. We raised money, and you matched the money and put an equal amount towards the wheelchairs that were sent. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I don't know how it started, but it's been going on for a number of years, and every year, you know, that's one of the pushes to continue supporting that. And each club can come up with, you know, the main thing that they want to support, and there's some clubs that's their main focus is wheelchairs, and of course they want to engage everybody in the district and across everywhere in international Rotary to be able to continue supporting that program. And I know they've made a lot of progress in it lately and delivered lots of wheelchairs.
Yes.
I believe there's a group going next month. I can't remember. I think it's Bolivia to deliver. They go in like container loads of these things. You know, it's not like 5 or 6. It's quite a few they're delivering.
I didn't realize that. I think we had raised enough money to send maybe 3 or 4, and then it was matched by the Rotary.
Right.
I wasn't really sure about the logistics of it. Did they just ship them individually or by the container, like you said?
They actually have Rotary members that go over with them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to be part of that as well. So we try not to just, you know, send money.
Right.
We like to be involved as well. And in fact, when you make a grant proposal to the district for a club to get, you know, a match, the requirement is you have to also plan for, you know, hands-on and being present. just like that Recovery United, we're not just helping with money. We come and help watch the kids or help prepare meals, that kind of thing.
Something that the district governor had mentioned during her speech at the district conference was they give hand-ups, not hand-outs.
Right.
They help people lift themselves up out of poverty and out of their situations, and they don't just throw money at the problem. And I thought that was a very unique and nuanced perspective, and I liked it.
Yeah, one of the other international projects is supplying clean water.
Yes. Yeah.
And the way they do that is they go and help build wells, and the people that are local are involved in that as well. So it's kind of helping them improve their situation.
Yeah. Rotary has a lot of philanthropic goals, and I've noticed that many members are either self-employed or have a pretty flexible work schedule. Can you talk about what it takes to become a member of Rotary?
Well, historically, they expected people who joined the club to be able to attend a majority of the meetings, and they say like 85%. But in this day and age, there's a lot of other options.
Right.
You can have electronic clubs where people can either make up a missed meeting by logging on and attending a virtual meeting, and it doesn't have to be a meeting of your local club. It can be a meeting anywhere in the world that's doing that. We've also expanded our membership categories so that instead of being just a standard member, you can be a corporate member. So a corporation can say, well, we want to support this. The same person can't come every week, but if they're not able to come, we can identify a backup or two. So basically paying for one membership.
Yeah.
And if it happens that both come at the same time, then you just pay for that second meal, because the membership covers one meal. And we have a family membership now where it's almost the same kind of thing, where a husband and wife can have a combined membership, and if just one comes, their meal's covered, but if both come, both meals are paid for. And we're looking for other types of memberships, because that's something that Rotary is keying on. Just like a lot of organizations, membership is declining.
Right.
And so we're looking at ways to try and engage more people. And there's quite a number of people I've talked to that say, well, I just can't get away during your lunchtime. Is there not going to be an alternative where I can be involved? So we certainly accept those people to work with us on any service projects. But as far as a membership category, we haven't yet created any more than the ones I mentioned.
Sure, yeah. So if someone, like this weekend, for example, you guys are volunteering at the VFW and selling concessions, hot dogs, chips, water, whatever. If someone wasn't a member of the Rotary chapter, could they still come and volunteer?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
In fact, we have a lot of that going on. Our club members are, on average getting older.
Yeah.
And so we definitely heavily depend on the Interact Club at Carroll County High School to help us out. Friends of Blue Ridge always has, some people that come and work some shifts. And really anybody that anybody knows who's interested in doing that, it's our main fundraiser of the year.
Yeah.
We used to do parking for the VFW, but the property that one of our owners had, our members had, he owned the property. He sold it. So the next thing we did to raise money was have a talent show. And that was kind of interesting, because when I was younger, my grandfather was in Kiwanis in Louisiana. And I wanted to spend more time with him, so I joined the club, and they kind of said, well, you're the new guy, so you have to now organize our talent show. And it was actually a huge deal, like 20,000 people would come to this thing.
Really?
It was a pancake breakfast.
Oh, yeah.
And then to entertain people when they came and sat there and ate their pancakes, they'd have local talent and, give trophies. So we kind of patterned after that, and we did it 3 years in a row until COVID hit. And then, the members were cooking the pancakes and cleaning the tables and all this kind of stuff, and it just worked out better once the VFW offered us to run that kitchen during the flea markets. That's what we do now for our fundraiser.
And you do both the Labor Day and the Memorial Day.
Correct.
Yeah. So Ms. Dalton had mentioned when she invited us to come and help it, that a large portion of the funds went towards the scholarship fund at the high school. And can you talk a little bit about the scholarship fund, how it began and how it's evolved? Yeah,
it began before my time, so I can't tell you exactly, but I know some members were the leaders to create that kind of a fund. And Rotary was managing the money, the Rotary Club. But after it grew, it made more sense to let's create a separate entity for that. And now funds are raised, by lots of different manners. But we actually continue to contribute ourselves, and we have members that are on that. I can't remember what it's called, the committee that runs that scholarship foundation. And they give each scholarship in honor of a past Rotary member or leader of the community. Friends of the Blue Ridge, which I'm also a member of, we also do scholarships. We
Yeah.
started it last year.
Yeah.
We've done that 2 years now. And really a lot of fun to go and, read the applications and award the students at the ceremonies.
A lot of them are really neat. They have some cool qualifications. Like, I was looking at the Friends of the Blue Ridge one last year, where it talked about combining art and the environment and engineering, and kind of like focus on sustainability and using what you've learned in your community and taking it into your career.
Right.
And I thought that was unique, and it's cool,
Yeah. We definitely want to try to, promote our mission, which is, again, the environment and culture, that kind of thing. So like you mentioned, art, especially Appalachian type. That's really what our mission is. To try to get, young people interested in doing things like, being outdoors in nature, any kind of there's a lot of music, obviously mountain music that's involved with that. So we wanted students who are interested in pursuing a career that would either promote or preserve the environment or teach people about, art, any of those type categories would apply.
Yeah. Another organization that you may not be a part of, but is the Masons. Does Rotary or Friends of the Blue Ridge ever work with them on any projects?
Not since I've been here. I joined Rotary in 2015 here, and I know we have a Mason, that's a Rotary member as well, but I don't know really anything about what they do.
Okay, yeah. I know that they help out a lot with the Fiddlers Convention, or that's the Moose Lodge, I believe. Does the Friends of the Blue Ridge help out there? Because I know that they do some stuff at the Blue Ridge Music Center, don't they?
Yeah, so just a little history there. So Friends of the Blue Ridge Parkway was what the organization was called for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And it was started to work to support the Parkway. We didn't do anything outside of the Parkway. And there's also a Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation that's been in existence for a long time, and their primary goal was to raise money.
Okay.
And they're the ones that put on those music concerts.
Yeah.
Okay. And Friends of the Blue Ridge Parkway members were mainly hands-on, doing trail work, painting parking lots, doing a lot of things. But the federal government, was seeing that people were donating money to Friends of the Blue Ridge Parkway, and they were confused. And the foundation, I think, sold them on the idea that if you let us be the sole entity raising money, then, it'll be better off. We'll have, and we can still, coordinate volunteers in different ways. So it ended up, after a couple of years of negotiation, that we're no longer really working on the Parkway at all. And we have a lot of volunteers that still do that, but they're not representing Friends of the Blue Ridge. They dropped the Parkway from the name. But it's really been an excellent for us, because now we're involved with like the Carroll County Creative Arts Center. We helped start that at the Carter home. We work on the playground down at
this
the
past
Wellness
weekend.
Center. We put pollinator gardens in behind the Sidney Allen home. A couple of elementary schools. We worked on Beaver Dam Trail. I think I've got 4 or 5 other things I could mention, but bottom line is, because we're now supporting the community around the Parkway, it opened up so many more opportunities. And some people just didn't want to do trail maintenance, but now we have opportunities for them to help be a volunteer. Basically, I would say our mission is to create opportunities for people who want to volunteer or want to help the community. We support a lot of the local food ministries, helping them, box food or, donations, monetary donations. I'm trying to think of this. One of the things I'm really proud recently was we were contacted by a Girl Scout leader who said one of their older scouts, I'm not sure what you call a Girl Scout, but they go for a gold award rather than an Eagle Scout type thing. And they wanted to put some raised bed planters at the farmer's market. And, they were looking for some help. And so we provided funds to buy the materials, and she put them together and designed them, and they're still there now in the farmer's market.
Really?
And she just won a big scholarship because the Girl Scout organization took her application, highlighting that project and said, hey, this is something we think's, a good thing, and we want to reward you for that. So
that's awesome.
Fuller Home Center is another thing that we've been involved in. They build a home once a year. There's some property they have in Hillsville, and they've done 4 or 5 homes so far. And there's opportunities to go help, build the home, plus donations for the materials. So, for Galax, we haven't done a whole lot there other than the Smoke on the Mountain Festival.
That's a big one.
And really enjoyed doing that. Get to see a lot of people and give them information about our chapter, collect email addresses. We send out a monthly e-news, and it highlights, here's the things that we're involved in. If you want to contribute or if you want to participate, let us know. And that just keeps everybody informed who's on the email list. And that's kind of how we get volunteers together for our projects.
So there is a larger Friends of the Blue Ridge organization, but you represent specifically the Fisher's Peak chapter.
I'm the chair of the Fisher Peak chapter.
Okay. Is there a lot of intercommunication between the chapters, or are you pretty
There
isolated?
is. We have a monthly call,
Okay.
where we talk about the projects each chapter is involved in and share ideas. And then the headquarters is based in Roanoke.
Okay, wow.
And they have 2 positions on the board that chapter chairs fill, and I'm on the board this year for that to try to make sure that the executive board has a close tie with what's happening in the local chapters, because that's really where the work is done in the local chapters.
Okay.
And they're constantly looking for ways to support the chapters that need a little more help than others, and trying to start new chapters.
Right.
As different areas are identified, especially since we've moved into communities.
Right.
We've already had a couple of requests for people, well, I'm not right next to the parkway, but I'm still interested in the kind of things you do. And there's a chapter in North Carolina right across the border.
Okay.
And their big project right now is trying to help rejuvenate a skate park, because that was a big recreational activity for the youth there, and it's gotten in disrepair and everything. Just a lot of money is needed for that, but they've started that kind of fundraising. And the other chapter next to us is between us and Roanoke, and Rocky Knob chapter, and they've got like 50-something miles. Here I'm only 11 miles wide.
Yeah.
But there's not any real big towns, so they just gave them that whole stretch.
Oh, yeah.
But they do a lot still with the parkway, with the campgrounds and that kind of thing. And they're all the way to Asheville,
Yeah.
and up further north. So.
Yeah. That makes sense. So are there, like with Rotary, there are dues that you have to pay to become a member. Or is that the same membership process for Friends of the Blue Ridge, or is it different?
So for Friends of Blue Ridge, if you want to be a member, it's $40 a year.
Okay.
But you can volunteer without being a member.
Right.
Okay, but being a member helps fund, some of the projects that happen. The biggest funding source for Friends of Blue Ridge is the license plate.
Oh, yes.
So they worked, really hard. It took a number of years to get it established, but there's now, whenever you renew your license plate, if you want a vanity plate, they call it, you can get one that, say Friends of the Blue Ridge.
Yeah, I've saw them.
And a portion of that money goes over to our organization.
Yeah.
And I think you were asking about dues for Rotary.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned before it's about $50 a quarter now.
Yeah.
And then you pay for your meals,
Right.
which we meet at Fiddler's, and let me tell you, we get a big discount on the meals.
Yeah.
And I just can't say how pleased I am with how that works, because I know some clubs are having to meet in a room with no facilities like that, but they have to cater in or bring sandwiches or whatever, and I just can't imagine being at a club like that, because I like to eat.
Yeah.
And we meet on Thursdays at noon
Yeah.
at Fiddler's.
And I've met a lot of pretty prominent members of the community at Rotary, like Brian Spencer, chair of the school board, Dr. Vaughn, she's a professor at Lindsey Wilson College. There are others neglecting to mention. You guys are kind of like the epicenter for good things in the county. You have people there who have a lot of connections, who have a lot of resources, and who want to do good things. So I think it's admirable how when someone needs something, you're there and you can help them.
You really nailed it. I mean, that's what really brings value, is when you get a group of people together who have connections, it just exponentially increases the ability to accomplish things.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And I think it's neat how you're able to include the high school. And I think there's probably, this may not be intentional, but there's a path there. Get them involved when they're in high school, and they'll do it when they're adults, and they can keep doing good things. Is that intentional?
Oh, that's exactly right. In fact, really the reason I'm involved in these things is because when I was in high school, I was kind of a nerdy kid, and I wasn't that physical. I was in band, I wasn't in sports. And the church choir was where I fit in. And we had a big church choir. We did trips and things.
Yeah.
And after I got out of high school and I went to college, just kind of like all kids do, you kind of drift away from organizations and things. But I never forgot how the adults who helped with that church choir group, gave of their time and their talents. Yeah. And I just felt like it's time to give back. And everywhere I've lived across the South, I've always looked for a church to belong to that had a strong youth group, and I would be a youth counselor, and that's what I'm doing here as well. And again, if you start this kind of a thing in high school, I think it does pay dividends, the rest of your life. And it's just to be a part of society, an effective member of society, you have to, serve.
Yes.
Yeah. And so.
Yeah. So you mentioned you joined Rotary in 2015. Was that Rotary in Hillsville or Rotary at another chapter?
In Hillsville.
Okay. Were you a member at any other chapters or clubs before?
No, like I said, I've been in Kiwanis when I was in my young 20s, and then everywhere else I lived, I was involved in volleyball and tennis, and I had a lot of all the church activities and choirs and the youth group, and I just never fell into any kind of a service organization. But when I came to this church, we're at First United Methodist Church here in Hillsville, the Sunday school class we have, everybody was active, everybody was doing service. In addition to, worshiping the Lord and doing the Bible study. And one of the members of our Sunday school class was a member of the Hillsville Rotary and said, you probably would be interested in this. And my wife, when I told her, she went, you mean you're going to do something else? I pretty much had where I was on volleyball one night a week, Withfield Community Choir another night, church choir another night, and just a lot of stuff. And then the Friends of the Blue Ridge and all. But at this point, I've kind of tried to settle back where my main focus for volunteering is Friends of the Blue Ridge and the Rotary Club. And there's a lot of other things we've done with Friends of the Blue Ridge. I want to mention Devil's Den Nature Preserve. Okay. I found out that preserve that was established like 30 years ago, when Carlin was his name, and in his will he established a trust fund and gave the land to a foundation, but he said after 20 years, if it wasn't self-sufficient, it needed to be sold like to the Catholic Church. And it had already exceeded that time frame, and the people who had been involved with it, aged out. Right. And so without, fresh people joining and the board, it was going to kind of go away. But it was just a great community resource. I didn't want to see that happen. And, Hillary Botson is currently the president of the board, and her grandmother, Evelyn Botson, was really instrumental in that, and the Carter home, by the way. Oh, okay. And I just love hearing about people in history who did something like rescued the Carter home from being a parking lot. Yeah. Mary Gwynn was involved. She was a mayor of Galax, and she was involved helping get the land for the music center, and she was a charter member of this Fisher Peak chapter, the first chapter of Friends of the Blue Ridge. And of course, when I met her, she was, getting on in years, but just a real pistol. And I just really respect people who did a lot of things like that and made a difference. And I didn't want to see their work, go away. So I got a couple of other Friends of the Blue Ridge members to join the board for Devil's Den. And we've made a lot of progress out. In fact, today we just started putting in a gravel parking lot. Really? And the trails have been fixed up real nice. We made a map so that people, when they visit the trail, can see where to go. We improved the visibility on the overlook. We added some signs for the kids, so when they're going down the trail, they can see pictures of animals and things. And we put a set of tubular bells at the overlook, so when kids go there, or adults, they can tap on each bell. It makes a musical note. You can play Jingle Bells or Happy Birthday or something on it. So. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I've never been, but I have several friends who have, and they loved it. They said it was beautiful, that they enjoyed the hike, and they would go back. I didn't realize that it was kind of in jeopardy.
It was, yeah. The trustees, spent all the money on the picnic pavilion and people can reserve it, by the way. Okay. We asked for a $40 donation, and then you can bring your family there on a Saturday or whatever and have it reserved. There's bathrooms there, facilities. And again, with this expanded parking lot, what we're trying to think about doing is having like a music event out there or art event or something. We had kite flying scheduled twice, and the first time there was no wind, and the second time it just rained buckets.
That makes it hard.
But one of our Friends of the Blue Ridge volunteers he's in a kite flying club. He has like 40 kites, and he can get 40 of them up in the air all at the same time. And and so we invited kids to bring their own kites, and fly. But hopefully we'll get that off successfully pretty soon.
Another project that you've worked on is the Discovery Park by the Wellness Center, Friends of the Blue Ridge. This past weekend they were painting the fence.
That's what we did.
Can you talk about that project? Because that Discovery Park is a great asset for the community. I know
It is.
a lot of kids go play there after school. Parents drop them off. They can do work on their laptop while their kids are in a safe space. It's fenced in. It's in a safe spot where the wellness center is. Parents can go work out. Can you talk a little bit about how that came to be?
Sure. But Hillsville and Galax are kind of the two towns that are closest in our area.
Right.
And Hillsville's a lot easier to work with because it's just the perfect size. I know Teresa Catron, I think is how you say her last name, was doing a lot of the work with the town, and her daughter Brittany is physically challenged, and somehow they came up with the idea of we need to put an inclusive playground.
Yes.
And that's what it's called, Brittany's
Discovery
playground. It's inclusive. It's got this type of equipment in the playground that can be utilized by her and other people. And so they were needing to raise money for it, and we found out about it, and then we helped pay for part of it. I think we paid for the fence and maybe some of the mulch, and there were other organizations that are named on the sign on the front. So that's how it got built, and then eventually, we knew the fence needed to be painted, so they contacted us, knowing that we do a lot of hands-on stuff.
Yeah.
And so we started painting on it this past Saturday, and it looks like September 7th will be the next date that we'll try to finish it.
Oh, great.
And then also with the town, we like working on trails, so we have the Beaver Dam Trail.
Yeah. Last year, it was in rough shape.
Yeah.
I bet were you the ones who were able to fix it? Because when it rained, when we had a bunch of storms, it kind of washed out.
Well, the town did that, but they asked us to try to paint the 7 bridges.
Oh, yeah.
And then we also went one day to help repair some of the trail tread, where it kind of got a little potholey. So that's the things we've done so far on Beaver Dam. And there's another group called Friends of Hillsville.
Yeah.
Laura Beth Parnell was in that group, and I actually would probably be part of that group as well, but they met the same night that the Wytheville Community Choir would have practice on Tuesday nights. But they do great things for the town, as you can see with the farmers market and the music concerts.
They actually donated the shirts that we wear for the litter task force. They designed them, paid for them, and then gave them to us. So fortunate that they were able to do that for us.
Yeah, and they had a litter pickup campaign. I think they do it every year, but I was able to go once. And to me, people that litter, just need to think about that, because it just hurts it for everybody. And it's one reason I like the Parkway, because it's generally pretty clear of litter.
Yeah.
But our people, wherever you live, don't do it. Yeah. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Not to make this about the litter task force, but one of our sayings is "Love where you live, keep Cary clean," and that's being adopted by the tourism director of the county. And I think it's a good message for everyone to hear. Love where you live. For sure. Keep it clean.
And another thing that you can do is reuse and recycle.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of, and I have to pay for putting trash in a landfill, so the less I have to put in the landfill, the better. So all the plastics and whatever, cardboard, paper, aluminum cans, I always separate those. Can't say I know for sure that they're getting recycled, but now it's a private company that's collecting it rather than a landfill. So obviously they must be, doing something with it. So.
Yeah. Are there any other projects I've forgotten about?
Well, pickleball is a big thing of mine, interest around here.
Yeah.
And when I came here, I was playing tennis and volleyball. And as I got a little bit older, both those things kind of got a little harder to do. So I was really glad to get introduced to the game of pickleball. And we were playing at the Wellness Center.
Yeah.
But you have to either be a member or pay a use fee, and then they had to go up on the use fee.
Yeah.
But the county did something really nice. The Woodlawn High School or junior high school that was closed, the gym was still there, and they were using it for like a walking track.
Yeah.
But they decided to let us put pickleball nets in there. So now we have 3 nets, play several times a week over there. There's a group in Galax that plays at the rec center. There's outdoor courts in Mount Airy, and probably some indoor courts too, I don't know about. And then I think Independence now has some outdoor courts. So it's the fastest growing sport in the United States, and it's really conducive to people that aren't in shape to be able to, like play tennis.
Yeah.
Plus you can play indoors a lot easier than you can play tennis. And, so I'm actually the coordinator for the Facebook group that we created for that, as I do Friends of the Blue Ridge and Rotary and all that, just the social media, how that can be real effective.
Yeah.
We have one for Devil's Den as well.
Okay.
So that seems the best way in today's age to get the word out about what's going on. The other sport I really enjoy my whole life has been ping pong, table tennis. And when I built my house, when we bought land in 2006 near the Parkway and we built in 2010, I made sure my basement was big enough to hold a ping pong table. But I couldn't find people to play.
Yeah.
So eventually it ended up here at this church in the youth room, and they really enjoy having that there.
Yeah.
And whenever I meet somebody who says they can beat me, I say, well, let's play.
Let's play.
Because I've played a lot and I enjoy having a real competitive game.
Yeah. It's grown at the high school. We have ping pong tables in gym classes, and I know there are a lot of students who play at church, and they're just ecstatic when the ping pong tables come out because they're good at it. So it's popular here. Yeah. At least within kids my age. If someone's wanting to make a donation to Rotary or Friends of the Blue Ridge, where would they do that? Online? Would they have to find you in person?
Friends of the Blue Ridge has an online capability to do that, and you can also contact a local chapter chair that I would if you wanted face to face. The Rotary Club will of course accept any donation, and there's an international office, there's a district office, there's local club presence. So we'd enjoy anybody that wanted to help out with any of the things we do, and you can look at the Facebook pages and see what projects we're involved in and which ones you might be interested in supporting.
Great. Yeah. Are there any websites that people can look up? And I can put these in the post description as well.
It's hard to find web support people. So of course Rotary International has one, and there's a district website, so it's Rotary 7570, that's our district number. But you can go to the Rotary International and they'll say, how do you find a district, how do you find a club, all that facilities there. And then Friends of the Blue Ridge does have a website. It's very well designed, I think. So it's called blueridgefriends.org.
Before we wrap it up, is there anything that you would like to mention?
Yeah, I want to mention that when we moved here from Charlotte, our son stayed in Charlotte after he got out of college. And he was really doing so well in a web design firm that he got a job with. And he came up to visit us, and we think that's where he picked up a tick. And people need to know that this is a hot spot, for Lyme disease. Connecticut, started and all that, but about 10 years ago, if you pulled up a map, it'd have this little dot right around here in our county. And I don't know if it's just a bigger deer population with the Parkway or something, but it became chronic because the doctors in Charlotte just didn't know how to diagnose it back then. And still to this day, there's a lot of mainstream doctors that aren't really that well educated on Lyme disease. He lives with us, he's disabled, he can't hold a job and that kind of thing. But my wife is the one to talk to about all that, and I think you're possibly going to schedule
within the next few
I'm not going to get into that, but it's definitely a big part of my life is, we're trying to help him, and hopefully there'll be some small improvements and he'll be able to possibly live on his own at some point in the future.
Are there vaccines for Lyme?
There's not. That's a big story, and she'll probably tell you much more about it. Unfortunately, the research community did some things that didn't get us to where we should be today with Lyme. I'll let her describe all that if she gets into it with you.
Well, before we wrap it up completely, I do have 2 questions that I like to ask every interviewee, and the first one is, what advice would you have to younger generations who want to get involved in their community? They want to do good in the world.
Well, when you're talking about, trying to be successful, obviously a career is one thing, and to be able to help other people, you have to not need help yourself. So I would say, obviously a lot of energy is going to be focused on that, and I would just say don't give up. Because most people who are successful made mistakes, or they did things, they tried them, and you just have to eventually get to where you're doing something you enjoy. I mean, why are we here? You don't want to work to live. You don't want to live to work. You want to work to live so you can have a good life. And I would say also strive for a job, where you have job satisfaction, and really that shouldn't be focused so much on how much you make, but it's where you feel like you're making an impact, making a difference. So if those are your goals, I think eventually you'll get there. I like this saying, I don't remember who said it, probably somebody I should know, but they said that nobody ever said on their deathbed, I wish I'd have spent more time at the office. And so realize that family and helping others is really where your priority is. You're going to realize sooner or later in life that's really what counts.
Yeah.
And obviously you need to focus on a career, especially if you're supporting others, but it shouldn't be your primary ultimate goal. And then the only other thing I'll say is get out into nature.
Yeah.
I mean, it relieves stress, it gets you closer to God. You just can have a more pleasant life when you can experience nature.
Yeah. We're doing this interview outside, which is a little bit different than how we typically do it. We usually do it at our studio or maybe at our guest's house, but it's nice. We've only done maybe 1 or 2 interviews outside, and it definitely brings a new vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
But my last question, it's a little bit of a cliche, but that is, what is the meaning of life to you?
Well, for me, it's definitely spiritual. There's plenty of evidence that life on Earth was created, not just came by chance.
Right.
And also, our Creator's opened a door for us so that we can join with Him once our time on Earth is ended. I think believing in who Jesus is makes your earthly life a journey in service to others, just like Jesus' example. And that comes with a joy. And even though there may be earthly pain and sorrow, it really can't extinguish that joy. And to me, discovering that is the reason we were created, the meaning of life.
Thank you, Mr. Simms. I greatly appreciate your time today, and I appreciate you reaching out to me.
Sure, Ethan. Nice to do this, and I'll listen to probably 30 of those podcasts, and I'm going to keep listening.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.